Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media. There aren't many cool days in the Kootenai National Forest, so he welcomed the breeze as he pedaled. His mountain bike was his only companion as he fled the bustle of city life for a Thursday night escape. With each kick, he surged a few feet, only to be slowed by the incline of the gravel trail. Every once in a while, the lay of the land allowed him to coast a few yards, but those opportunities were few and far between on the ascent of the trail. Rounding a bend, the biker noticed a new root ball close to the trail he was traveling. Being very familiar with this area, he thought it prudent to stop and take a good look at it, as it wasn't there on his prior trips. The biker decided he'd make a noise to see if the root ball wasn't what it seemed. He was in grizzly country after all, and he wasn't about to take any chances. As soon as he made the noise, that root ball became animated and turned in his direction. Being cautious is a great habit, but being prepared for such a situation is pivotal. As the bear ambled in his direction, the biker fumbled to pull out his bear spray. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. The Starry Goat Loop Trail is located just west of Troy, Montana. You can access it from the Callahan Creek Road, beneath the protective shadow of Preacher Mountain. Now, if there's a better place to run into a grizzly bear, it seems like Preacher Mountain might be a good spot to do it. The only problem is that Mother Nature is preaching the sermons, and sometimes they're more fire and brimstone than grace and mercy. On the afternoon of July 10th, 2025, a mountain biker whom we'll refer to as Monty had just left work. He had it in mind to go to one of his favorite trails for an evening wind-down in the woods, a forest furlough, if you will. Monty couldn't count the times he'd pedaled this trail, and he knew it like the back of his hand. The first few minutes of his ride, Monty settled into a comfortable pace, inhaling the fresh air and the scent of the pines. Rounding one turn after another, his mind began to let go of his worries and cares, but Monty kept a wary eye out as he rode. Although he was an avid outdoorsman, he was admittedly forgetful about the basics at times. It wasn't rare that he would forget to bring along his bear spray, so he rigged a little holder for it by cutting off the top of a water bottle. The spray and the water bottle rested securely in the bottle cage while he rode. This allowed him to have quick access to it without having to deal with a holster. Monty didn't carry a pistol, but relied on his practiced use of his bear spray for reassurance. But that breeze had him a little worried. Rounding a corner, he noticed a new landmark, which raised concern. It was dark brown in color, suspiciously similar to a grizzly bear. After stopping his bike, Monty made a noise to see if the object moved, and boy did it. It was a grizzly, as fate would have it, and this bear didn't disappear into the brush as it fled in terror. It turned quickly in Monty's direction, and immediately headed toward him. He watched as the hump of muscle on the bear's shoulders churned with each step, and gulped at the sight of its large ivory claws. Now certain this bear was not afraid of him, Monty reached down to get his bear spray. He flicked off the safety tab and hoped that the breeze would die down, or his last hope at defense might drift away ineffectively. Having practiced and educated himself on the proper use of bear spray, Monty knew that his only hope to discourage the bear was to wait until it was only a few yards from him before releasing a burst of the irritant. Knowing he would only have 4 or 5 seconds before the can would be emptied and useless, he waited and prayed the grizzly would change its mind about investigating him. Focusing on spraying a short toot would ensure he would have enough for another blast in case the bear wasn't easily discouraged. At about 10 feet, Monty decided to dispense the irritant and press the button, releasing a billowing orange cloud directly into the bear's eyes and nose. The reaction he'd hoped for was exactly what the bear did. Monty watched as the bear rerouted itself to a spot above the trail, about 20 yards away, and sat down with its back to him. The grizzly coughed, gagged, and wheezed for several seconds, pawing at its snout for relief. Monty knew this might be his best chance to beat feet. He hopped on his mountain bike and pedaled away, keenly watching the bear before it disappeared around a bend in the trail. Having had his fill of excitement for the day, Monty contacted the Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Department to let them know what had happened. The wildlife officers heralded Monty for being cool and collected in the encounter. He hadn't screamed and hollered, let alone panicked and run away. Each of those actions may have excited or frightened the bear and increased the likelihood of a defensive attack or a predatory response. He was prepared for the run-in and methodically thought his way through each step of the incident. The grizzly got a great lesson on why it should avoid contact with people, and Monty kept all his appendages. Officials placed trail cameras at various points along Starry Goat Loop Trail, hoping to get some pictures of the grizzly for later use, but that bear had hit the trail and was nowhere to be found. After observing activity along the trail, the cameras were removed, and all was well. So far, 2025 has yielded 60 grizzly bear conflict reports, involving 70 bears across the state of Montana, and summer's only partway through. The state of Montana is host to around 2,000 grizzly bears, split between the greater Yellowstone ecosystem and the northern Continental Divide ecosystem, near the northern Idaho-Montana border. Despite stable and healthy populations surpassing targeted goals, grizzlies are still listed as endangered under federal law. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Do you think Monty's calm behavior lessened the potential for an attack? Was this grizzly curious, or could it have had more predatory thoughts on its mind? Do you think the bear retreating and facing away from Monty was a sign of submission, or was it just overwhelmed by the irritant? I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. The early afternoon sun had peaked in the Wisconsin sky, and the temperatures were creeping up. July was always the hottest and driest month here, and this one was on target. 69-year-old Karen Fry was enjoying the fresh air while doing some cleanup in her backyard. The thick woods west of town had always pressed in close to her home and allowed a female bear and her cub easy access to Karen's yard. She was leery about going outside, given how much of a problem the mama bear had been giving her the last few weeks. The comfort and privacy of her yard was too inviting, and Karen hadn't seen the bear today. As she strode across the lawn, she caught some movement in the brush and was alarmed to see the sow and her cub emerge only a few yards away. Karen started to talk calmly to the bear as she slowly walked backward, but the sow was clearly more angry than Karen had ever seen her. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. July 12, 2025 began like most summer Saturdays in rural Barron County, Wisconsin. Sunshine dappled the lawns and porches near Comstock, and Karen stepped outside her cozy home around 2 p.m. She had good reason to be worried. A sow black bear and her cub had been unwelcome visitors to Karen's yard several times, and the old girl wasn't too happy to see her human counterpart. With each of several meetings, the bear's attitude toward Karen ratcheted up in intensity, and with it, Karen's anxiety about how to deal with the bears. As Karen's mind refocused on her tasks, she momentarily took her eyes off the tree line surrounding her property. Her family knew about her problem with the mama bear, and she had a degree of peace knowing that they may stop by to check in on her. As she turned her back to the woodline, the sow and her cub emerged from the brush less than 25 yards away. Before Karen could let out a scream, the angry bear had covered the ground in only a few bounds. As the sow clawed at her and snapped her jaws at Karen, the woman recognized the bear as the same one that had been roaming on and near her property. This bear was slowly stalking her on previous occasions and chuffed at Karen from the brush on several others. Most mama bears would take the presence of a human as a sign to find a new place to raise her cub, but this one was a little different than most. Karen's dog, whom we'll call Jet, was barking and running around, but the sow was focused on Karen. With a series of quick bites and swipes from her paws, the sow's attack was stopped as she searched the brush for her cub. Karen knew this break in the violence might be her only chance to escape. She rolled to her feet and limped into her home. Now within the safety of her house, she dialed 911 and pleaded for immediate help. Not only did paramedics respond to her calls, police pulled into the driveway, armed with long rifles, meant for taking down the bear. Now there's a certain order in which things tend to happen. Paramedics can't respond to a location with any confidence while a dangerous animal prowls the area, so the police gathered information about the bear while the medics treated Karen. After being informed the bear was still in the backyard and Karen's dog was running around as well, the police officer strode confidently across the side yard. The video from the officer's chest cam tells the story and is linked to in our Patreon account below for your review. The officer worked his way around the side yard before locating the bear, approximately 35 yards away, near the woodline. He raised his rifle and ripped off 3 shots in rapid succession. The bear responded to the impact of at least one of the rounds by spinning toward the woods and disappearing into the brush. Following the blood trail, the officer soon heard some twigs breaking from the brush to his right. He glanced up and saw a yearling cub clinging to a tree, now separated from his mother and lost. After following the bear's blood trail for several yards into the brush, the police officer turned his attention back to Karen and the paramedics. As he walked toward the front yard, he met game wardens from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Relaying all information he could to them, the officer left, allowing the wardens to put a plan in place to trap the sow and her cub. The wardens didn't like the idea of a wounded mama bear being so close to town. They requested and received tracking hounds, which were on the site in a matter of minutes. As the hounds made their way through the forest, the wardens were taking possession of culvert traps and snare traps. They positioned several traps around the property, along promising paths and shadowy shelters. A posse of armed game wardens were assigned to comb the woods and instructed to shoot the sow on sight. One of the snare traps was successful in snaring a large male black bear, but the big old boy was released after the short-lived case of mistaken identity, while the sow and her cub remained elusively hidden in the forest. After a series of hospital transfers, Karen was eventually admitted to Regents Hospital in St. Paul, Minnesota. Her condition was stabilized, and her severe lacerations and bruising were treated. The bear's claws and teeth did severe damage to her flesh, but her mind will struggle for much longer and have scars more painful. Very determined to find the sow, game wardens were concerned that she may have had rabies. They formulated a plan to capture her in the snare traps and humanely euthanize her for testing and analysis. There was no way they could see the sow would be allowed to return to the wild, and removal was the only option after Karen's attack. The cub, on the other hand, was still salvageable. When they catch it, they plan to sedate the bear cub and relocate it to a more remote area where it will have a chance to thrive and develop its own territory. Speaking of cubs, our Cub Tier membership on Patreon, linked below, will give you ad-free early access to our episodes, notes, and pictures. And the $3 per month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce educational and entertaining content like this. Karen will survive, but there was no information provided indicating what became of her dog. The sow likely succumbed to her wounds in the forest, but if she lives and is caught, she'll be euthanized, per department guidelines. Wisconsin is home to over 24,000 black bears, over its 65,498 square miles. This is a bear density of 1 black bear per 2.7 square miles, including urban areas, farms, and other areas not likely to host any bears. This population density is easily carried by the resources in the forests in the area, but with rural communities and acreages located in prime bear habitat, incidents like Karen's are not likely to stop. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Given we don't know if Karen had reported the presence of the sow and her cub near her home, would involving the authorities have prevented this attack? The information for this episode did not state that Karen owned or carried bear spray or a firearm. Would either deterrent have helped Karen avoid being attacked? Do you think the repeated and persistent appearance of the sow on Karen's property was a warning from the bear? I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comment section below and let's talk about it. She pushed aside a thorny blackberry branch as she hiked down the trail and kept her eye out for her dog. The warm summer day was still too early for the bush to offer its berries, but the serviceberry and raspberries displayed their colorful fruits. Talcott Mountain was a heavenly place on this day, as it was on most, one in which a woman and her dog were lost in its wonder. Phoenix was a 10-year-old German Shepherd Pit Bull mix, who still acted like she was a pup. She dashed ahead of Kaylee, who was Phoenix's most favoritist human. As Kaylee caught up to Phoenix, the bushes opened into a small clearing. She entered the clearing, and an overwhelming sense of foreboding flooded Kaylee. Wanting nothing more than to find Phoenix and leave, Kaylee found her playing with something that looked like a small dog. After getting closer, she saw that the two little dark critters she thought were dogs were black bear cubs, and they were playing with Phoenix. Before Kaylee could process what to do next, all hell broke loose. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Every day like clockwork, Kaylee Roy, a 34-year-old hair salon manager from West Hartford, Connecticut, set out for her usual late-afternoon stroll with her beloved dog Phoenix. Their favorite trail to hike was near the edge of town, on Talcott Mountain. The trail twisted through shimmering patches of sunlight and forest shadows, and seemed to emanate a peace that filled Kaylee's soul. But that feeling of peace may have disappeared forever after June 29th this year. As the cubs and Phoenix played, an angry sow bounced from the brush nearby. Pausing a few yards away, the bear must have misunderstood what was going on between the cubs and the dog. She pounced on Phoenix and bit into the flesh of her neck, lifting the dog off the ground. As Phoenix yelped in terror and pain, the bear dragged her toward the brush. That is when Kaylee's inner dog momma took over. Now, most of the time, Kaylee brought along a backpack with food and water and other necessities, but inside it today she was lugging a big stainless steel water bottle filled to the brim. Kaylee never thought of it as a potential weapon, but today she found herself being very creative with it. As she watched Phoenix yelp and struggle against the powerful bear, Kaylee thought this might be their last memory together. If her heart didn't break at the sight of Phoenix in pain, it at least cracked. Her adrenaline surged and forced her feet into movement and her heart to fury. There are two types of people when it comes to heartbreaking circumstances. The first type of person will hit their knees and plead for the life of their loved one. They'll offer anything in exchange for them. The other kind of person bows their back and stands tall. They don't ask for anything, they attack. In an approach that would make a banshee flee in terror, Kaylee wound up and swung the water bottle at the bear with all her might. The steel corner of the bottle caught the sow flush on the nose, causing her to shrink back, Phoenix still clenched in her jaws. But Kaylee wasn't done yet. In a series of repeated blows, the tiny woman whacked the bear while screaming at the top of her lungs. The bear mama had to reassess this dog mama and step back after releasing Phoenix. A short stare-down followed, and the sow blinked. She turned and disappeared into the brush with her cubs in tow, leaving Kaylee and Phoenix terrified as blood trickled down the dog's neck. With the violence of the attack behind them, Kaylee and Phoenix turned their focus to the lengthy walk back to the car and finding help. Phoenix wobbled a bit as she walked, but she tried her best to follow Kaylee. Each step brought increasing challenges, and eventually the dog began to slow. For a woman who doesn't look like she weighs 100 pounds, Kaylee was somehow able to carry her very large dog nearly a mile to the car. By now Phoenix had lost a lot of blood from the numerous lacerations and puncture wounds to her neck. Kaylee paid no mind to the blood spattered on her car seats as she rushed Phoenix to the emergency veterinary hospital in West Hartford. The doctors acted swiftly, cleaning and closing deep lacerations and torn tissues around her neck and chest. By pure providence, they found no internal puncture wounds. Her airway, esophagus, and major organs were intact. After surgery and stitches, doctors told Kaylee her dog had beaten the odds. Phoenix began her long recovery at home. Fellow park goers and strangers who read Kaylee's GoFundMe page rallied around her. Donations poured in, nearly $10,000 toward a $14,000 goal as of mid-July, offering hope and relief. Through tears, Kaylee shared that Phoenix is my heart, my family, my protector. She remembered how Phoenix leapt between her and the bear at just the right moment, shielding her with courage that belied the dog's peaceful nature. It was that split-second act of bravery that saved Kaylee and demanded that Kaylee now save Phoenix. They say that dogs behave like their owners, and Kaylee and Phoenix are proof of this axiom. I've linked to Kaylee's GoFundMe page if you desire to show your support in the article links below this video. Later she learned that bear sightings throughout the state are at an all-time high. Simsbury led the list in 2024 with 976 reported sightings, followed closely by Avon, Torrington, West Hartford, and Farmington. Statewide, bears have been observed in 159 of the state's 169 municipalities. Wildlife experts attribute this rise to expanding bear populations and human-bear habitat overlap. No state or federal wildlife agency has indicated plans for intervention in this specific case. The bear and cubs returned deeper into the park and presumably resumed normal behavior. No indication of illness or abnormal aggression in the bear has surfaced. The bear was not known to be defending a cached animal carcass, but was protecting her cubs from a perceived threat. Speaking of cubs, our Cub Cheer membership on Patreon linked below will give you ad-free early access to our notes, pictures, and episodes. And the $3 per month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce educational and entertaining content like this. Despite the trauma, Kaylee doesn't regret being brave. She wonders how she'll view the woods now, but knows she'll answer a primal call to protect. I urge her to continue to adventure bravely into the forest, but pack bear spray and use a backup deterrent like a firearm or an air horn. And Kaylee, you may want to consider picking up an inReach by Garmin to call for help in the event you can't walk out. Battling the bear was a win, but the outcome, that Phoenix is alive, is victory enough. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Do you think the bear would have attacked Kaylee if Phoenix hadn't been there, or was the dog a contributing factor in the attack? Was the sow protecting her territory, or was she surprised by the appearance of Kaylee and Phoenix? Would you run toward a bear armed only with a steel drinking bottle to defend your dog? The only thought that would cross my mind is that I can get another dog. Kaylee is a braver person than I am, and is proof that dynamite comes in small packages. I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We've slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.